"You fired the wrong damn person," I whispered, just loud enough for the janitor to hear, as I dropped my security badge in the trash and stepped into the rain with a banker box full of my career and one rubber plant drooping like it knew the truth. Rewind 72 hours. Monday, 8:59 a.m. I'm halfway through a half-stale bear claw, and we're routing a supply chain emergency. Polymer casings stuck in Newark because someone fat-fingered a zip code. The elevator dings and he walks in. Not him, his son, Spencer. The kind of kid who uses words like synergy and has never once stapled his own resume. He saunters out like a perfume ad, $800 loafers, too tight pants, and a jawline sharpened by daddy's nepotism. Our receptionist literally claps, like the prodigal moron has returned. He doesn't shake hands, doesn't say good morning, just marches into the bullpen and yells, "Want all department heads in conference A, 10 minutes, tops." Then disappears into the glass box like he's got an Emmy-winning monologue to rehearse. We shuffle in like condemned livestock. First sentence out his mouth, "This place runs like a retirement home. That ends today. We don't reward slackers. If you're not building value, you're dragging cost." Now, I've survived 3 mergers, 1 embezzlement scandal, a blackout that killed half our data servers, a Christmas party where Susan from accounting tried to twerk. But nothing prepared me for the smirk he gave me when he locked eyes, that slow, rehearsed, daddy-approved smirk. The kind of smirk that says, "I read your salary," and it gave me a semi. I didn't blink, didn't flinch, but I knew the guillotine was already being wheeled in. That night I stayed late. Not to catch up on invoices, hell no, I was erasing things. Personal touches. Old notes, vendor contact files I'd memorized anyway. My desk went from lived-in to abandoned motel room in 20 silent minutes. Then I left a flash drive taped under my keyboard. Tuesday, 10:04 a.m., HR calls. "Hey Todd, can we chat real quick?" "Sure, why not? Let's euthanize loyalty over free scones." In the beige interrogation room they call a wellness suite, fed me some legally pre-chewed line about organizational agility and how my role has evolved past necessity. I was encouraged to pursue external opportunities. Translation: pack your shit, dinosaur. The boy king wants his sandbox. I didn't argue, I didn't plead, I asked one question. "Is Spencer signing the release?" The HR chick blinked. Yes, I grinned. Perfect. Because here's what Spencer didn't know. Last fall, Mid-State Plastics, vendor we'd used for 15 years, was one board vote away from collapse. I personally renegotiated their contracts to keep their heads above water. They called me the quiet savior. I called it Tuesday. But Spencer, he had no idea that without Mid-State, 70% of our production pipeline goes dry. That the casings, the molds, the custom FlexRig parts, they don't magically appear in a drone drop. They come from one quiet, underfunded, desperate company clinging to one major client, us. And I knew exactly how to make that desperation mine. By Friday, I was sitting in Bill Forrester's garage with a bottle of Knob Creek and a manila envelope thick enough to choke a lawyer. Bill's face was redder than the label. He kept pacing, muttering things like, "Spencer who? And you saved us, Todd. What the hell happened?" I didn't answer. Just pushed the envelope across his cluttered workbench, between an oil-stained vice grip and a half-eaten Slim Jim. He opened it, then stopped chewing. Inside, a buyout clause I drafted with Todd Jr., my brother-in-law and part-time pitbull attorney. 51% of Mid-State, majority control, full board override, immediate transfer, all funded by my severance, my pension, and a line of credit that would make my wife scream if she hadn't already left me for her yoga instructor. "I don't want your vote, Bill," I said. "I want your silence." He stared, then nodded once, the way a man does when he's drowning and someone hands him a rope made of debt and loyalty. We signed it on the hood of his F-150. By Saturday night, I owned the jugular of my old company. Quietly, legally, irrevocably. No LinkedIn update, no press release. Just a silent coup written in printer toner and bourbon sweat. Sunday morning, I emailed Spencer. Subject line, "Let's talk about supply chain." No signature, no body. Just a PDF of new pricing terms, rates doubled, payment up front, 30-day turnaround, penalties for late remittance. 3 hours later, radio silence. Then 11:37 p.m., my phone buzzed. Blocked number, I answered on the third ring. "This is insane," Spencer snapped. "You don't have the authority, I am the authority," I said. Calm, cold, check with your father, or better yet, don't. Let him find out Monday. Like I did. Click, Monday, 9:02 a.m. I walked into the lobby wearing the same boots I was fired in, only now I had a visitor badge and a delivery folder stamped urgent. Receptionist blinked like she saw a ghost, or Karma with a beard. Spencer spotted me from across the bullpen and turned the color of skim milk left in the sun. He actually sprinted toward the conference room. Too late, because that's when the elevator doors opened and his dad stepped out. The CEO, the man with the actual throne. He looked from me to his son, then to the folder I handed his assistant. "Why is Todd here?" he asked. No one spoke, so I did, with a smile. "Because your new acting executive liaison just terminated our biggest supplier. And the new owner of that supplier, you're looking at him." The room went silent. Then Spencer laughed. One of those high, nasal, desperate chuckles that sound like a balloon deflating through a straw. "Dad, he's bluffing. It's a stunt." His dad opened the folder. Read, flipped a page, then another, and then he screamed. A full-body, boardroom-shattering howl that sent 2 interns running for the stairs. "You fired our new owner." I swear I saw the janitor clench his mop like it was a rifle. And all I could do was smile and say, "Guess I was building value after all." Spencer stood there like someone had yanked out his USB cord mid-update. Face frozen, lips parted, eyes darting like a dog that just pissed on a power outlet. His dad didn't say a word for 5 full seconds. Just stared at me, then at the folder, then back at Spencer, like he was trying to confirm whether this was a dream, a prank, or a full-on corporate exorcism. Finally, snapped the folder shut and tossed it onto the receptionist's desk like it was radioactive. "Conference room B, now," he growled. Spencer opened his mouth to speak, but caught the look. The kind of look that ends trust funds and revokes inheritances. They marched in. I followed, 3 of us. 1 room, 1 ticking bomb. His dad dropped into the chair at the head of the table and rubbed his temples like he was massaging a migraine caused by years of poor sperm decisions. "Want to tell me," he said slowly, "why I just found out on a Monday morning that my company's only plastics supplier is now owned by the man you fired for being dead weight?" Spencer tried to smirk. He even leaned back like he was still on top. "Dad, come on. This is just a power grab. He's trying to leverage you. It's a bluff. He doesn't have the capital. I leveraged my pension. I cut in, voice like gravel and gunpowder, and my 401k, a line of credit through 3 LLCs. I put up everything you thought was disposable, including myself." Spencer's smirk dropped so fast you could hear it hit the carpet. "Mid-States board approved the transfer Saturday morning. I'm majority owner. I've already rerouted 2 of your standing shipments to secondary buyers in Milwaukee and Tucson. Clients you lost last year when you replaced half the account managers with a CRM subscription and an intern named Kaylee." The CEO turned to Spencer. "You let him take control of Mid-State." Spencer actually started sweating. I watched the beads form, slow, dramatic, like a cooking show timer. "I didn't know. How would I know? We had no visibility because you don't read, Spencer. You perform. Swagger around in tailored suits using buzzwords like vertical scaling and value extraction, while the guy who built the damn bridge was busy reinforcing it with duct tape and caffeine." He stood up, veins pulsing in his neck like a warning flare. "I gave you 6 months to learn, and in 4 days you handed the steering wheel to the only man in this building who knows which direction the car even faces." Silence. Then he turned to me. "What do you want, Todd?" It was the shift, not a plea, not a threat, a negotiation. I slid a second envelope across the table, not as thick, but heavier. Inside, a new vendor contract, same quantities, higher prices, new terms, and a clause. All executive liaison roles must be approved by vendor leadership. Vendor leadership being me. Spencer lunged like he was going to snatch the folder, but his dad slammed a palm down that rattled the pens. "You will not touch that," he barked. "Turn back to me." His voice dropped to a hush, like a man trying to hide shame behind decorum. "If I sign this, you're back on payroll?" I laughed, not loud, but sharp. "No, I'm not coming back. I'm not clocking in under someone who calls integrity a legacy and efficiency. I'm not rebuilding a house just so the termites get to live rent-free again." I stood, buttoned my coat. "But I'll supply your nails, for price." And I walked out, didn't look back, but I heard it. Spencer's voice cracking like cheap vinyl, gasping, "You're just gonna let him own us." And his dad, he didn't yell. He just said one thing, cold as frostbite, he already does. By Tuesday morning, the ripple hit the bloodstream. Emails from procurement. Calls from finance. A panicked Slack message from Kaylee with 16 crying emojis and a subject line that just said anxious face with sweat help. Apparently, the news leaked faster than a cracked PVC valve. Word got out. Mid-State Plastics was now under new leadership, and that leadership wasn't exactly feeling charitable toward the people who tossed him like expired printer toner. But I wasn't reckless. This wasn't revenge by Molotov. No, this was surgical. I didn't burn bridges. I bought the toll booths and started charging triple. I froze all standing orders from the company until they signed the new terms. Quietly redirected some components to two smaller startups I'd had my eye on for years. Company Spencer had mocked in meetings for being boutique scale. Turns out, boutique beats bankrupt when your only supplier's playing hardball and you're stuck with 36 back orders and $1 million penalty clause from your biggest client in Denver. By Wednesday, the dominoes started coughing blood. A furious message from logistics, who authorized the shipment halt. You have Q3 timelines to hit. Another from sales. Why is Midstate redirecting our parts to Everforge? Who even are they? And my personal favorite, an all-caps beauty from the CEO himself, call me ASAP. I didn't. Instead, I spent Wednesday afternoon sipping burnt diner coffee with Everforge's founder, scrappy little bastard named Nate, who built his operation out of an abandoned chicken feed warehouse and still wore steel-toe boots to board meetings. He shook my hand like we were burying a body. "You sure you want to tank your old shop like that?" he asked. I grinned. They built the tank. I just rotated the turret. Thursday morning, the first formal offer landed in my inbox. Subject, let's talk partnership. From Spencer, hyped like a man trying to swallow his own ego one character at a time. I didn't open it. I printed it, framed it, hung it next to my father's old union badge in my garage. Instead, I responded to the CEO directly with a counter. If they wanted Midstate's production pipeline back, they'd have to agree to a quarterly transparency audit by me. And they'd have to restructure the logistics department under a new division name, TW. Operations. Initials on every invoice, every blueprint, every truck that left their warehouse from now on. They could keep their corner office politics and $7 coffee. I'd own the bloodstream, quietly, permanently, without needing a badge to open any doors. By Friday, I got a 2-word reply. Deal accepted. That same day, they held a company-wide call. Spencer didn't speak. He wasn't even on camera. Rumor had it he'd been moved laterally to a new internal project. Role so vague, even his email signature looked embarrassed. But the real kicker, Monday morning, a new welcome packet went out to all employees. Inside, an updated vendor protocol sheet, a list of logistics contacts, and a branded Midstate pen with my name engraved on the clip. No message, no speech. Just a silent reminder, the man you fired, he owns your oxygen now. The silence that followed was better than applause. For the first time in 20 years, I didn't wake up to an alarm clock screaming about deadlines or a passive-aggressive email from some middle manager who couldn't run a microwave. I woke up to nothing, and nothing tasted like power. But quiet doesn't last long when you've cracked the bone and sucked the marrow. People start noticing. By week 2, I got a call from Delaney, director of vendor oversight, and a woman who once told me I lacked upward vision during a review she spent applying chapstick. Tone was sugar slick and laced with panic. "Hi, Todd. I heard the news and wow, just congratulations. We're all so excited to collaborate again. I'd love to set up a touch base." I let the pause hang, then said, "You gave my parking spot to Spencer." "Oh, haha. Yeah, that was his idea, and you know how onboarding chaos is. Water under the bridge, right?" I smiled at my reflection in the blacked-out monitor. "Delaney, the bridge is ash. Welcome for the charcoal." Click. But that was just the appetizer. 2 days later, I'm invited to a Supplier showcase in the city. Black tie, skyline venue, cocktails named after buzzwords. I wasn't going to go. But then I heard who was keynote speaker. Spencer. Yep. Still clinging to relevance like a bug on a windshield, they'd given him a 30-minute slot to present the future of agile vendor strategy. I nearly choked on my whiskey when I read it. I showed up. Not to make a scene. Not yet. I showed up in the same damn boots I was fired in, wearing a blazer from Goodwill that fit better than anything in Spencer's Versace closet. And I watched. He walked out like he was auditioning for Shark Tank. Clicker in hand, screen behind him glowing with words like synergy, convergence, and smart disruption. Then, slide 6. Midstate, a model for adaptive partnerships. And there it was, my face. In the background, blurred but undeniably me, from an old warehouse photo during a shipment rally. He was using me in his pitch like I was some faceless cog he'd guided. I raised my hand. He ignored it. I raised it again. People started looking. And that's when the host, some overeager 20-something in a 3 sizes too small tux, called on me, smiling like this was just another Q&A. Question from the floor. I stood. Todd Warner. Owner, Midstate Plastics. The room froze. Spencer's clicker slipped in his hand. "Mr. Warner," the host stammered, "do you have a comment?" "Yeah," I said, voice calm but heavy. "Just wanted to clarify that slide, that's me." taken 2 weeks before this man fired me for operational redundancy. And now here I am, apparently redundant, yet owning the pipeline he built this whole presentation around. A low ripple, whispers. A cough that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. I locked eyes with Spencer, called it agile strategy. I call it poetic irony. Then I sat back down and sipped my drink. He finished his presentation in 8 minutes flat and exited stage left like the building was on fire. 3 VPs approached me before I even reached the buffet. 2 asked about consultation. 1 offered a contract, and none of them, even mentioned Spencer's name. By the following week, Spencer was a ghost with a badge. It spread fast that he'd been transitioned to innovation liaison, corporate code for locked in a room with sticky notes and no power. They moved his desk to the 3rd floor, near the broken copier and the guy who still uses a Palm Pilot. His emails came through once a day, always CC'd to legal, always signed with some new, desperate title. He even tried messaging me directly. Just a subject line, can we meet? No body. No apology. Just that 5-word breadcrumb from a man watching the empire he inherited rot under his loafers. I never replied, because by then, I had bigger plans. See, when you own the artery, you don't just bleed the beast, you restructure the heart. I started sniffing out other weak points in the company. 2nd-tier vendors, leveraged to the bone, overseas fulfillment centers, 1 customs delay away from collapse, ridiculous over-reliance on proprietary bolts that I had sourced 15 years ago from a guy named Arlo, who now owed me 3 fishing trips and his 2nd divorce. I started consolidating, quietly, bought up 2 minor competitors in Arizona and Michigan, mid-size, underloved, and sitting on warehouse gold mines, rebranded them under TW, Industrial Holdings. I didn't need a PR campaign. Just invoices. A lot of red ink turned black with my signature on it. Meanwhile, the company that fired me, they had no clue why lead times were slipping, why suddenly their discount brackets evaporated, or why a routine quote for 5,000 units now came with a 4-week delay and a payment clause that read, at discretion of supplier principal. Every clause, every delay, every inconvenience, they were mine. And they felt it. By month's end, got another call from the CEO himself. This time, he didn't bark. He didn't posture. He asked. Todd, he said, with that corporate humility that tastes like swallowing nails, we want to propose something more permanent. A board seat, strategic control over the supply arm. We think your insight could help us rebuild stronger. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I scheduled a lunch. Neutral ground. A mid-tier steakhouse near the interstate. Booth in the back. I wore my oldest flannel and brought a yellow legal pad covered in scribbled figures, just to remind him who still worked for a living. He showed up in a tailored suit that tried real hard to forget it once hired his own son. He opened with small talk, weather, golf. I cut him off. Let's get something straight, I said, setting the pad down. I'm not coming back. I'm not wearing the badge. I'm not giving you access to my infrastructure just because you suddenly realized my absence came with teeth. He nodded slowly. Didn't argue. He knew better. What are you willing to give? He asked. I smiled. Flipped to page 2 of my legal pad. It was a list, a long one. 10-year exclusive vendor contract with annual escalators, mid-states full branding autonomy, right to veto any executive appointment in supply or logistics, 15% equity in their emerging tech subsidiary, and a clause that would make Spencer's name a red flag on any future hiring document. He looked at it. Blinked. Looked again. This is a lot. No, I said. This is consequence. He signed. Didn't even haggle. As he slid the contract back across the table, I saw it in his eyes, the full weight of understanding. He hadn't lost an employee. He'd minted a king. By the time Q2 reports dropped, I was in 6 states and 3 time zones, quietly fueling the machines they thought would grind without me. I didn't need a throne. I built a switchboard. Every order, every shipment, every pivot in their logistics plan now passed through hands with grease under the nails and my name on the ledger. Their quarterly shareholders call, a comedy show with charts. Revenue flatlined. Client churn spiked. One analyst flat out asked, is it true your core supplier now owns partial stake in your future tech wing? Silence. Then Spencer's name was officially dropped from the executive registry. No farewell memo. No HR tearjerker. He just evaporated. Rumor was, he tried to interview at a startup in Boston and got laughed out of the room when someone recognized the mid-state clause on his CV, my clause. Blacklisted by proxy. Poetic justice? Sure. But I wasn't done. I needed a finale. Not a firework, something slow, humiliating, irreversible. Enter Phase 2. Partnered with Everforge and Arlo's Bolt Empire to develop a modular replacement system for the exact custom casing their flagship product used. Better specs, lower cost, patent filed in my name. Then I offered it first to their biggest rival. Within 2 weeks, a deal was signed. Press release hit the wires like an air horn in a library. Everforge announces breakthrough partnership for next-gen manufacturing, disrupts existing supply models. It was everywhere. Trade blogs, investor groups, internal memos with words like catastrophic and unanticipated exposure. Because that one product, that was their cash cow, their shiny toy, and now I made a newer toy, cheaper, stronger, not theirs, the cherry on top. They had to call me to license the design. The CEO's voice cracked when he said it. We're willing to pay above market. And I said, you already did. The day you gave Spencer a clipboard and let him call the herd. I faxed the quote, at triple. No reply. But later that week, a wire transfer landed. Full amount, no negotiation. And just like that, the house that fired me was paying rent to sleep in their own bed. Meanwhile, I was 3 states away, fishing with Arlo, watching the sun melt into the lake, and sipping bourbon from a thermos I used to keep under my desk. The same desk that once held my pink slip. Full circle. Only now, the circle had teeth. Last Friday, I got a letter, real envelope, embossed seal, from the board. Inside, a formal invitation to their annual retreat in Aspen. Theme, resilience in modern enterprise. They wanted me to speak. Keynote, share my journey. Inspire their next-gen leaders. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my eggs. These were the same people who watched me get escorted out like spoiled milk, who nodded while Spencer pitched his PowerPoint gospel about eliminating dead wood. How they wanted me to give a TED talk on survival. I didn't reply. Instead, I bought out the ski lodge next door to theirs, booked the same weekend, invited every small vendor they'd ever underpaid, ghosted, or threatened with restructuring. We called it the supply chain revival. At the kickoff dinner, I raised a glass and toasted to the ones they called replaceable, to the ones they forgot had teeth, and to the boy kings who thought crowns were transferable. Meanwhile, across the mountain, Spencer, if he even showed, was probably stuck in a PowerPoint circle jerk about future-proofing. I had a snowmobile, 3 contracts on the table, and a roaring fireplace full of old agendas I'd printed just to burn. That night, I stepped outside with a drink and looked toward their lodge, lights glowing, probably another workshop about lessons learned. And I wondered if they ever really understood what happened. I wasn't the hero of some rags-to-riches redemption arc. I was the consequence of forgetting who built the damn walls. Spencer thought firing me was a clean cut, but he didn't realize I was the vein. And when you sever the vein, the body bleeds. Now, they bled, and I owned the transfusion.